Hey guys, welcome to Newsroom Teresa Lusk. I am here with my co-moderator, Chuck Branch, and we had the honor of really moderating, Chuck, our McKinney Municipal debates,
Yes,
April 15th.
absolutely. This was more of a serious debate. We got down to the meat and bones of this. This wasn't any kind of a softball questions. This is, hey, what do you feel about this? Tell us why, and let's justify it. So felt like we got a lot accomplished, got a lot of great compliments on the questions. People feel like their questions were answered and they felt like they knew who they could actually support in this deal.
I think one of the things that we were really aiming for is we heard, first of all, we were listening to the constituents, and the constituents were saying all over social media and in person, they were all saying that they didn't appreciate the softball questions. Like you just said,
Yes,
they didn't appreciate it. They wanted us to dig in there. And first of all, before we even go on, I want to thank, first of all, ahead of time, McKinney Values PAC, the Collin County Conservative Republicans, and the Collin County GOP. And so, because they were the ones who sponsored it, and they invited us to be a part. But we really did take the time to listen to the constituents. What were some of the things that the constituents were saying?
First of all, I want to take what we did. We took it very serious. We did a lot of research, spent a lot of time, went through a lot of meetings, a lot of questions, bounced some questions off and eliminated a lot of questions, and felt like these were the ones that we needed to. And so what the citizens, we figured, wanted to know, and we also heard a lot of feedback prior to this, was, hey, we want to know, why is it some of these items, whether it was the apartments, whether it was the airport, the projects that are going on, the taxes and such, those are things people wanted to know about. They didn't want to know about, hey, what's your position? Anybody can state a position, and anybody can say, hey, I support it. But we wanted to know, hey, justify it. We want to know if you really could justify and give us some substantial answers to that. And we found a lot of that out.
Yes, we did. And Chuck is right about lots of time that we spent. And I want to make sure the public knows that, Chuck, because I think that there are a lot of debates being held and hosted, and that's great. They're all doing their job and et cetera. But, we really did take our time to hear what the constituents were upset about. What were they frustrated about? It's not enough to just say, this is my position, because sometimes the position is only what they want you to know. These political candidates, they're only going to tell you what they want you to know. And it takes people like you and me who dig in. And guess what? And this is one of the fun things about that Chuck and I had. We had a lot of fun doing it. We challenged each other, and I wanted to make sure people knew that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, we did. And we found out that we don't agree on the same candidates, not as each other, nor as maybe any of these organizations.
That's right. But I actually love that, because I think it's important that people know that the people that he may have endorsed in his heart or mind were not the people I was endorsing, and vice versa. And we may be in agreement with a couple of them, but not so much. And I think that's healthy. I think that we need to get back to healthy politics. I think that is healthy politics.
Absolutely. Let's get down to the truth. And one thing I do want to say is thank you to those candidates who showed up. I know that some people were a little frustrated because of the night, but one of the groups, this is when they have their normal meeting. And we invited everybody to come out, and some were upset because it was a time that one candidate couldn't show up. Well, there's 20, 25 candidates that were invited to this. Most everybody showed up, and we had a couple of people that decided not to show up at the last minute. We had some top candidates, but it goes to show that maybe they didn't want to answer these questions.
Yeah. And I think, at the end of the day, I think every group has a right to decide when they're going to do what. I know they wanted everybody there. I know some of the complaints, and we've talked about this, that some of the sponsoring organizations already had the people they had endorsed. But at the end of the day, we've all endorsed someone. We may say it publicly or not, but at the end of the day, we've all endorsed someone. So I think we are going to just have a great time just going back and reflecting on some of the things we learned about these candidates, even maybe putting out some facts about stuff that maybe some of the candidates said and weren't actually necessarily factual.
Where did you come up with it? Yeah, that's a great line. So let's start with the Collin College Board of Trustees. This was a race that neither one of us knew about. This was a race that, honestly, when we read their websites, they had some good credentials or none at all. And so, but they were able to really discuss in detail what their priorities were and how they wanted to really accomplish these. And we found, very interesting information and quite honestly, they were very, very good, and they seem like they've really done a lot of studying
Yes.
on these
Yeah.
issues and what's going to be important, not just to them and the kids, but also to their constituent base. So thankfully,
Yeah.
we got that information out there.
Absolutely. I think, and maybe you can reflect on Stacy a little bit more. I remember listening to Justin Adcock. So we're talking about Stacy Weaver placed 7, and then Justin Adcock placed 6. And I remember really appreciating Justin Adcock's responses. They were just so clear, succinct, to the point, and he had
very concise.
Yes, he knew what he was talking about. I think he had already thought about the issues that Collin County was facing, and the very strategic solutions that were that he was planning on implementing as far as he could control. What do you think about that?
I did. I thought he did very well. And to Stacy's point, one of the questions we asked her, or our main question to her, was, hey, you've got this experience. Sounds like great experience. Explain how that will bridge on to what's going to be important, and what are your priorities, and tell us, how do we connect those two? And I think she did a phenomenal job. Really, bringing that together.
I think it's important that political candidates really focus on that. Chuck, I was telling you earlier that I get tired of these politicians. They sound like politicians. I'm so turned off by it. I just want you to sound like a human being. And this is just my personal pet peeve, but I'm too intelligent for you to talk to me like a politician. You know what I'm saying?
Tell us what your heart is.
That's
what I really like. Just tell me what's really on your heart.
Point.
We did have a couple of people who did that, which was pretty cool. But it's not often, is it?
Yes. So we're thankful to the Collin College Board of Trustees candidates. I think they did a great job. So good luck on that to them. Let's talk about the McKinney ISD Board of Trustees.
Yeah. So we had a pastor, a Marine, and a cowboy up there. It was interesting. But what was great was they all have a good, strong faith. And so they were really able to demonstrate to us, I felt that they were able to really demonstrate how they are really looking out for the kids, and how their faith has helped them to focus on that. And it prevents them, against the ideologies that are out there, the gender, the transgender, and everything else, those challenges that are out there. And they seem very supportive and more like-minded as those of us who are similar in faith as well.
For sure. One of the questions that we asked was, what are your policies? What are your thoughts on, brainwashing our children today, really, isn't because that's what's happening in the schools, unfortunately. I know Chad Green, he's been around for a while. He's in place 3. And I know that, some of the things that people bring up with him is that they don't feel that he's been very cooperative, et cetera. Right. And then some people think, well, you're not standing up enough to your values. So I feel like for the most part, he really just made his declaration, and he seemed to really stand on what he stands on, and was not going to apologize for that. And of course, there are going to be people who disagree with him, but I just appreciated his forward declaration of his position.
I did. And at the same time, I've seen many conservatives who were able to get things accomplished because they were able to collaborate. No, collaborate doesn't mean that you vote along. It doesn't mean necessarily that you compromise values. As a matter of fact, you don't compromise your values at all for any reason. We already know that he stands out, but I really didn't feel that he explained how is he going to collaborate with others and really get some things accomplished. He showed more about, hey, well, if they don't agree with what I agree with, I'm not going to work with them. And that's one of the challenges we have in a lot of the leadership and the real strongholds out there.
We do. The other question, though, as well, though, Chuck, is, we see what's going on even in our federal government and politics. So let's be honest. Is that even possible always? Because when we have such a division, is that even going to be possible? I know you and I, just based on the working relationship that we've built, I think we can wrestle each other out, and then at the end, high five each other and say, have a good day.
Yes. So in a smaller setting, and I wasn't the best at it, even when I was on council, is that in a smaller setting, you should have the ability to work with more people, even if you can get 3 or 4 people, just to explain what your heart is, and ask them and get more input. How could we accomplish this? Because I don't think that people, as we heard from the 2 others, they're not, they're not in favor of the ideologies and the transgender and such. But those are guys that I felt like that is somebody that you could really work with.
Sure.
And so why not figure out, hey guys, how can we work together?
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you have to apologize and just say, hey guys, you know,
I'm sorry, I'm about to
I've
hurt
had to
your
apologize
feelings.
because I've done a lot of stupid things, but it is what it is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But I want, you
so-
know, I'll be honest, as a mom,
Mhm.
I want somebody who's going to fight for what's best
Yes,
now.
absolutely.
And that's why I think that we're not always going to get the unity that we want.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, that may or may not depend on a person. But,
Yes.
you know, once again, you know, I would love to see a little more cooperation, or at
Mhm.
least not such a volatile relationship,
Yes.
right? That would be
I agree.
nice. But hey, you know, and then of course, Kenneth,
The
Ussery.
pastor Ussery, yeah, Kenneth Ussery.
Kenneth Ussery.
You know, he had
Place 7.
such a lively,
I'm sorry, place 2.
just a warm individual.
Uh-huh.
Him and Harvey both, and I've known Harvey for a long time.
Okay.
Actually, I was a mentor for 6 years, and
Mhm.
we were able to work together in the past. And we talked
Okay.
about our faith, and I've seen his hard work and efforts he's really put forth, and really what his heart is for the school and the children.
Well,
So
I
it's great.
enjoyed Kenneth. I think I
Mhm.
loved. I thought he was from Georgia. That accent. I said
Yes,
that,
you did.
He swears it's from McKinney, Texas, but I
Yes.
said no, that's a Georgia accent. You're just not telling anybody.
Yeah, no, he's from here, as he says, right?
But hey, you know, as a faith woman myself,
Mhm.
he admitted that he is a pastor.
Mhm.
And he stands on biblical values. So, hey,
Yes.
speaking of endorsements, like I'm not endorsing him, but
Uh-huh.
that is a policy that I would definitely get with. You know,
Yes,
if
I
that's where
agree.
you're going to make your decisions, me personally, that is where I'm going to really hang on to. And then I enjoyed Mr. Oaxaca. I just feel
Mhm.
like he. Just a man who's been around for a while and
Yes.
has some wisdom. And
Yes.
obviously, you've worked with him.
Yeah.
I appreciated his honesty as well with his
Mhm.
own personal, like, you know, his own personal
Absolutely,
household.
absolutely.
I still would want to know for sure that regardless, you know, of what is in your house, whatever, that your values are still going to be your values,
Yes.
regardless of what everybody else chooses.
Yes.
So that would be my question: is okay, that's great. Will he
Mhm.
stand for biblical values?
Yeah.
Regardless, right?
Yeah, I felt like he really shared that story. Kind of an example for a lot of us, though, is that, hey, listen, we have these challenges in our house,
Mhm.
but I can't judge people. Doesn't mean, and it's just like when Christ said, hey, listen, I came to save the world, not to condemn. And many times we need to understand that our role here on the earth is, hey, we're there to help people get
Yeah.
along and not condemn them, because people are beating themselves up bad enough, and they don't
Sure.
need our help
Sure,
doing
sure.
that, right? And so I
Yeah.
felt like he really was able to show his genuineness.
Yeah, maybe he was just trying to say, "Hey, this is still what goes in my house." I think sometimes you feel the need, even as a minister myself. I can't. I tell them what you see in my children may or may not be what I'm endorsing. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Because you
Uh-huh.
raise your children and they're going to make their decisions. Doesn't mean I
Yeah.
may not condemn, but I'm also not going to condone. And so I
Yes.
love that he was just trying to be a voice. But I think that's going to be up to the voters
Yes.
who can vote for him anyway.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
great group. We didn't see Corey Homer.
No.
We had been expecting him originally, and then at the end he was.
He decided to not show up.
Okay,
Not
so-
sure why, but
Yeah, we don't know fully, but we're going to leave that one
okay.
for his constituents to deal with.
Mm.
And then McKinney City Council District 3.
District 3. Yes, Tammy showed up. She was able to answer the questions. I felt she came forward with it. I know that she felt like, hey, you know, give me a chance. I'm here to do what's right. I'm not going to support the airport. I'm not going to support some of the projects that have come up. And I really want to focus on making sure we build up that sales tax revenue and the commercial tax base, because McKinney has gotten so lopsided with all the housing, all the apartments and everything else.
And
So-
I threw some hard questions at her, by the
You
way.
did,
And I
you did.
actually made a point of that because I know Tammy very well.
Yes.
Right. And
do
so
too.
I want to make sure that people understand, I may really, you know, like you and even support your policies, but as a
Yes.
moderator, our job is to be 100% objective. And I wanted to
Yes.
make sure that the community knew, okay, one of the questions was, you know, your opponent, she talks about her qualifications
Yes.
and her experience in
Credentials and
council.
such. Yes.
So I wanted to give Tammy the opportunity to answer, okay, well, if people are going to try to compare, right, background to background, then
Yes.
what qualifies you? And so I know that we threw some hard questions.
We did. Because you want to know specifically when somebody comes in to a new role like this, because it's a big responsibility. I'd tell you, I was very nervous when I went in, and I was way in over my head at the time, or I felt that way. And it's easy to do. we wanted to make sure that she understood what she was getting out in front of, and what's her background and how would that pertain. She talked about how she served on boards and how she's been part of some of the commissions and bond commissions, and how she's helped out in that, which is good. Which is good. It doesn't give you the full understanding, but at least you put forth the effort. She's been in McKinney for a long time. Wasn't as strong as I would like to have seen in all the details of it, but for the most part, she did answer, and we did throw some hard questions at her to make sure that she could answer it and give us a good understanding of her positions. And I think that's what's most important, is
absolutely.
backing up.
And just to put this out there, nobody got the questions ahead of time.
No, nobody did.
Nobody. We were not going to pacify anybody, even though there were requests for the questions.
Yes, there were.
We were not going to do that because this is, listen, it's a job. When I go to a job interview, nobody tells me, hey, by the way, here's the set of questions I'm going to ask you. Go ahead and take a few days to prepare for this. Either I know the material or I don't, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it would have been great, if her opponent had been here, if Dre had been here, Dr. Feltus. I want to know, and I think a lot of people want to know, why did she support the airport? Why is it she's supporting all the apartments and the government assisted housing? McKinney, even while I was on council, and there's still information out there that shows that McKinney already has over 50 of all the government housing that's out there. McKinney has 50% of all of it that's in Collin County. And those are things that we need to make sure, because they don't get any tax dollars out of it. And why is it that you support those? And why did you throw so much money at some of these projects without proven concepts? But we don't have those answers. And
maybe somebody else will ask her. And by the way, her reason for not being there that night is because there was a council meeting already scheduled. So, so that's, that's just how it worked out. However, those would be great questions. And maybe somebody will pick these questions up if they haven't asked, and hear what you're asking, and say, hey, let's ask her that question.
Absolutely.
McKinney City Council at large, Dr. Taha Ansari. What did you think about that?
I liked his heart. I liked the fact that he was able to explain his positions and really tell us exactly why he supported something and didn't. And he studied the issues, even without knowing the questions. He seemed to have a good understanding of what's important to the McKinney, what going forward, and how we would address situations. And so I felt a good, I felt like he really did well.
You think
in
so?
that? Yeah, I do. I agree.
I think he definitely he studied on what was going on. I don't think that he came to the stage without preparation and understanding of what is it that the constituents want to really learn. They don't want to, just like you said earlier, they're not just trying to get a position. They want to know the intricacies of the answer. What is behind that? Why would you support this? And so I did think he came in with some good information. I think some facts, even not just like assumptions or guesstimations. I thought, what he brought with numbers. What about Jim Garrison?
Jim Garrison, he was very well spoken. He seemed to address the issues. I still question his some of his numbers. The airport was a big one. He brought up, well, the airport generates $300 million economic. And I know there was a study, but it's more of a regional study that they did that shows the airport potentially could bring in $300 million, but the airport's only brought in about, $20 million, $25 million a year. And it's in a TERS. So in and of itself, it's not going to bring in the property tax dollars directly into the city or the general fund. And going forward, there was the question about the carrier the passenger service. And no one can really seem to justify on that in that area, six more flights and $72 million. Eventually, maybe it happens. We don't know. Right?
Now, he made it very plain and clear that he is for the airport. He did, which, this is one of the things that, we may, I haven't stated my position publicly about anything, but I just appreciated the fact that he straight said it. Okay?
Yes. Yeah, hey, exactly.
At least you're saying it, because, a lot of these politicians, they would just hide it until once they're in office, and then they would say, oh, by the way, I changed my mind, let's go ahead and put our little signature on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to give him credit for that. And it, like I said, it sounds like he's done his homework. I think we need to verify some of the numbers with him, but seemed a likable guy, somebody that really does his homework on this.
So hey, if you're for the airport, then that's I guess he's your way to
That's
go, I
yeah,
guess.
that's a guy you could.
Ernest Lynch, what happened there?
He didn't show
He
up.
didn't show up. That's
So
right.
that was a last minute scratch also.
And Derek Tarver.
Yeah, Derek Tarver
Yeah.
also there. Oh, by the way, there was another organization. It was NAACP had their forum that same night as well. And you know, we don't hear about that or complaints about towards them for having their forum the same night as council meetings, but hey, it is what it is, right?
That means you and I are special. There's something
I know,
special about this.
I know. I know.
Just messing with you. Yeah,
okay.
It's too bad because we would have really liked to have had
Absolutely
everybody. I understand there was a council meeting and what have you, but it would have been great to have. And the reason for that is because you know, every organization has their own culture, whether we like it or not. They each have their culture. And I understand that maybe some of the candidates don't necessarily line up with the sponsoring organizations, and that's fine. But I think that's even more admirable when you can go into an organization that does not line up with you.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. We had a couple of people that weren't there because they knew that they hadn't been endorsed by the organization, but this wasn't moderated by those particular organizations. And there were a lot of people. I mean, all of our at-large candidates, there's only one candidate who got endorsed, but other two didn't. Same thing with the mayor's race. We had somebody who didn't get endorsed and they decided not to show up, but the other three did. And even the McKinney ISD board,
and I
those
think
guys.
It would have been great if they gave us, you and I, the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
Said, hey, these two people are exceptional. Let's give them.
Absolutely. That's right. I agree with it.
No, you know, honestly, even I have the ability to be objective, Chuck. I know you do too. Like we can pull back. It's necessary. It's a necessary culture that we really need to get back to. Being honorable just because of your position. Listen, I hope that the day I run, I will take on any organization, regardless of who and what. I'll just have you right there by my side and going, come on, girl, you can do this.
We'll see. We'll have to check about your issues. Make sure that you're on board with them.
Oh, before you.
That's right. And you can answer the hard questions. That's the big deal.
You know what? I actually thought about that. And I thought, you know, I know some of these candidates are complaining because they didn't appreciate our stacked questions. And listen, I was very proud of our stacked questions.
I agree. Like you said, there were people that liked it. Even some of the candidates, they said, hey, you know what? We appreciate the fact that you actually made us use our brains on some of these because we felt like this was a good challenge. And it does, I hate to say it this way, but it weeds out some of the candidates, even some that I really liked.
Sure.
And that brings us to the next one, Brian Magnuson. Like the guy, great guy. He's been a friend. Doesn't seem to understand all the issues as necessary. And
I got a little lost with his rhetoric a little bit. Like I think, and funny thing, because I've heard some feedback, nothing against the guy. Actually, I liked him. I think he was a kind man, very kind man. I love, he's a teacher, right? He's so you got to give him props for that. You know, he's an education. I just feel like I didn't leave there understanding fully what he stood for. I think sometimes people, when there's too much information in one little moment, and maybe he might say, well, you asked me this stacked question, so how couldn't I? But, you know, I mean, once you learn how to be a politician, you know, then you start
maybe that's what it is, right? I don't know. You know, we asked, he did stand against the airport. He did state that position, which was good. And so that helps to at least know where he stands. It's just a matter of, and he tried his best to come out there, but
You ever wondered that some of these people don't really care if they make it in or not? They just want to get known a little bit better. And I'm not talking about Brian, by the way. I don't want anybody to go, she said this about you. No,
you did say that. Huh? Is that your outside voice?
See, Chuck. See, this is how Chuck and I were when we were preparing. But no, in all seriousness, I've actually wondered that through other candidates. I've just thought, I wonder, you know, sometimes even when those who commit to showing up and then they're a no-show. I just go, okay, are these people really serious about their candidacy, or are they using it to kind of like a launching pad to get to be known even more?
I don't know.
It's an assumption, but
I haven't seen Brian do that. And I don't know that you said that we didn't think that he did, but no, I don't. I think maybe some people do. They just want to show that they showed up on a ballot but they don't show up the rest of the time. You know, with the campaign, I've seen it a lot of times, and unfortunately, people I've supported and endorsed, and so now one of the first things I say is, listen, you're going to have to work. You're going to have to know the issues, and you're going to have to talk to the people because it's so important. People need to know where you stand on these issues, when you're willing to go out and talk to the people and listen to the people. In addition,
Mhm.
it brings more conviction to those beliefs, or it helps you change and understand
I think that you
those
have a
beliefs and
point.
what's important.
Yes, and I was thinking about this because I think that a lot of times, and you've run, so you
Hmm.
know what this is like. You can state a position and then you go back and you go, oh wow, my
I was
statistic,
wrong. Yeah.
yes, and
Hmm.
I know that's hard.
Yeah,
I know
it
it's hard
is.
to have
It
to
is.
say, oh darn, I messed up. But one of the most honorable things is to say, guys, I had a misrepresentation in my mind about something,
Hmm.
and after doing some research, here's what is.
Yes.
Listen, I would respect you a whole lot more
Hmm.
than if you just threw it under the bus and pretended
Yeah.
it never happened or came by. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've had to go out on Facebook and admit some things, and it's not easy, but it is. It helps.
You could be Bill Clinton, but you're not. So we'll leave it.
Wow.
We'll leave that there.
Okay.
Listen, I appreciated Bill Clinton too. I'm very conservative, but I still
Okay.
appreciate it. So moving on.
So, as we said, Derek, he didn't show up.
Nope.
He went to another event.
I
So
was actually looking forward to hearing from
yes,
him. Believe it or not,
it would have been good.
Yeah, because he's very involved and he's a community guy based on what
Mhm.
we've seen
Yeah.
and what we researched. And I thought, okay, I'd like to see him because I feel like a lot of these, and I'm not on social media watching these all the time. I have my own homework to do, but I haven't really seen him around. So I wanted to see, what does this guy stand for? Have you met him?
I've met him once, and
Okay.
it's good. And I got more out of researching what he does, and my
Mm.
understanding he helps kids and coaching, and so which is good. Like you said, community type work, and which is
Okay.
great. I think
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
memorable.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's move to the place where I think more people are really, hanging in there
To
and
the
going, "Oh my
mayors,
gosh,
yeah.
what about this?" And that's the mayors,
Yes.
the mayoral candidates.
Okay.
We'll start with Dr. Matt Rastami. Okay.
Okay.
First of all, he is hilarious. I'm sorry.
He is.
Hilarious. Like,
We did laugh. I try to keep a straight face on some of it, but and not in a bad way.
right.
He's very intelligent. He's
Mhm.
able to really communicate well with the
Mhm.
audience and show some relatability. And I think that's what brings the humor to it also, which is good. People need that. People need to lighten up,
Mhm.
especially in these kinds of
Yes.
situations, But
Yeah.
he brought some really good not antics, I would say, but he's starting to show that he is a real serious candidate. A
He
lot of
is a
people
serious
doubted.
candidate. Well, because
Yes.
when you look at his videos from when it kind of first started, they were very comical. So too much
Yes.
comedy, not enough substance.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And then I think he maybe began to evolve a little bit.
Mhm.
And then you see this high level of intelligence and
Yes.
research it's clearly there.
It is. It is. He still has a little more work to do and clean up to do with some of his understandings of like the TERS and about the Economic Development Board and the CDC.
Mhm.
But he's working hard to try to really understand it. And you
Yes.
have to give somebody credit for really putting forth the effort in that.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things because I was worried about some of the candidates because I thought, I don't know that they're what word can I use? Up to the challenge. Is that a
Okay.
good way? Yeah, up to the challenge,
Okay. Are you referring to you
to
don't
a
know that they're going to
few.
put forth the effort, or they're
Just
what do you think it
just
is?
up to the like really knowing. Okay, one of the things that I think was really amazing to see is working with you.
Mhm.
You had these numbers and statistics. You know where to
Mhm.
find them. You know where to go. And I'm not sure that I have really felt sure that I
Mhm.
believe all these candidates really know where to access the information.
Yeah.
And that's why one of the questions I asked, I think Dr. Ansari was the first one I asked. I said, "Did you know the exact number of developments that are going on?" I remember asking that. And
Yeah, I remember
asked that
you
for a
asked. I
reason.
didn't remember who that was too. Okay.
It was I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And there was a
Okay.
reason for that because I want to know, did you know where to find the info? And did you go look for the info?
Mhm.
Right? See, these
Yeah.
are the things that sometimes the public thinks we were just two people sitting around going, what should we ask? But the
Yes.
truth is these were thought out. What you asked was
Mhm.
very thought out. What I asked was very thought out.
Yes.
I want to know,
Mhm.
did you know where to find the info?
Yes.
So
That's a good question.
thank you,
That
Chuck.
just popped out of nowhere. I didn't know where you came up with that
Oh,
question.
you thought I just wrote it down?
I didn't know. You just never know, right?
You never know.
So Scott, let's talk about Scott Sanford. Scott Sanford.
Mhm.
So we asked him a hard question. We asked him about SB6 that he
SB6.
supported, and that was the vote to be annexed, and the challenges that have happened with it. And
We asked that because Mayor Fuller
yes, because the
has
mayor's
been
been asking about
challenging him
yes,
in that.
exactly.
And I think it's a perfect opportunity, even though it was when he was he was a representative or secretary.
Yes.
So I think it was fair that if the mayor is going to be using it for his own propaganda, et cetera, so they needed to hear that. They needed to hear why did Scott vote the way he did. And so what do you say about that?
Well, so I had to go back and look at it myself and understand. And I was on council when that was passed. It was 2017.
Okay.
September, we started to go force the annexation or trying to force annex about 150 properties out in the ETJ. And one of the reasons why they did pass this was because cities weren't providing the service to those individuals that lived in the ETJ, but they were collecting the taxes. And so I remember that was the reason why they actually did it. And now even with I do a lot of consulting for companies and investors, and they want to go out and they have properties in the ETJ. And to be honest with you, cities don't have to provide the way to get to their services. So in other words, they may have a water treatment or a sewer treatment plant, and they have to make that available to those in the ETJ if they want to connect to it. However, that doesn't mean they have to provide the infrastructure, because you have some that it could be a mile and a half, 9,000 feet away, and they're going to have to end up paying about $4 or $5 million. That doesn't mean the city has to pay for that. Now, if it's beneficial and they want to come into the city, then yes, you can negotiate those terms. But if someone's going to come in and they're going to stay in the ETJ, you don't have to provide services. You don't have to provide the roads. The roads are actually the responsibility of the county. So when I hear that, and then as it relates to the fire, Trinity Falls has a fire. They have a fee for each one of the residents to pay those fire.
Oh, interesting.
So it's out there. And then, of course, the police are the constables and sheriffs because they're in the ETJ. Now, McKinney provides it for Trinity Falls because that's part of their agreement. But anybody else comes out in the ETJ, it's going to be the fire. It's going to be the constables and sheriffs. To give an example, even whenever we were going through those challenges in the ETJ, Salina had the same challenges as well, but they offered certain annexation agreements. They said, hey, if you decide that we're going to let you stay in there, we're not going to forcefully try to annex you right now. But, in 45 years, I think it was maybe 20 years, I don't recall. But in the agreement, if they came forth and they actually wanted to do a development, as soon as they sent it in and it got approved by council, they automatically annexed into the city. Okay. And the city would help them provide services and such. And that's something that really the cities have to be more mindful of how to make that work.
Well, I mean, and this is a perfect example of the intricacies of the answers that we wanted to hear the candidates speak about. This is why even you covering this portion of it in this type of detail is important. Now, some of them are very, very, very well versed in some of these things, but we needed to hear. So I'm glad that we asked him that question, because I think it was fair. I think it's good, especially for those who support him just because they like him, because he's a pastor or because he was a CPA or whatever. Like, that's great, but let's get to policy.
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, Scott didn't answer that question thoroughly like I just did. His primary answer was that, Mayor Fuller is the only one that he's heard actually bring this situation up. And so who knows what it is, but I felt like that was that really needs to be explained to people that may hear it or think that that's a big issue.
Well, if it came up for a reason. I think sometimes these the candidates, they don't understand. They don't want to pay too much attention to any one particular thing, but there are some things you're going to have to choose to address, because it does land in the hearts of people, and you just got to go, all right, this one's worth addressing. Yes. So,
and one of the other things that we addressed with Scott was, hey, tell us about the airport. And Rustami actually kind of bounced back at him and said, hey, listen, so what does that mean by a pause? Rustami said he was against the airport
because he said
altogether.
He would pause it.
Yes. And he goes, well, what does that mean, a pause? Is that a day? Is that a year? Is that whatever? And so Scott, I think he addressed it to say, hey, it's a long. So Scott's a CPA, right? And so he explained that he's going to look at the situation. They're more methodical. I was an accountant for a while, and so we think through things a little bit before we make a final decision on how do we mitigate any challenges, or what can we do to make this work out, right?
So there's the answer for anybody who's wondering, because he didn't necessarily say he's opposed to it, right?
That's correct.
Right. So he's still wondering. And, that's something important to think about as well when it comes to your city council people.
Yes.
Because they too may not necessarily be completely against it, but maybe finding some alternatives, et cetera.
Now, Scott did say, to his point, he said, however long it takes if people
Mhm.
decide they want it. He said, I don't see that happening, but as long as it takes.
Yeah, there you go. So
Okay.
I don't know, maybe there's a little something in there. I don't
Well, I
know.
think what his thought is that he's there to represent the people, and this is my interpretation, is that the people, if he can come to a conclusion or a solution that appeases the people as well, to where it's something they could get behind, then
Yes.
that might work.
Well, sure.
Yes.
And of course, you're never going to make everyone happy. As we have learned, we have people who applaud and people who just boo, right?
Yes.
So, all right. And then let's talk about Taylor Willingham. What
Okay.
were your thoughts on Taylor?
Well, you go ahead and you tell me.
Well, Taylor actually surprised me a little bit, I'll be honest, because after researching him, first of all, he's a very kind man as well, very,
Yes.
very nice. I appreciated just saying hello. I didn't spend much time with him. I tried not to do that with anybody at the beginning, so that nobody thinks I'm giving away the questions, right? We had to keep it on the straight and narrow.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I hugged some of the people that I knew. I hope that was okay.
Chuck,
and some of the
I've got
candidates I know.
pictures of that. We're going to talk
Yeah.
about that after
Okay.
this.
All right. So, yeah.
No, I mean, so I appreciated, he went into a little more detail than I was expecting. And so, and then at the end, he surprised me a little bit, because then he was like Mr. Unifier, and he was just like high-fiving everybody symbolically.
Yes, he did. And he's like, well, to this person's point, to that person's point, it's like he wanted to not grab, but it was like he wanted to agree with the other two on their different points. And I think what was the question? It was very specific. It was about how does he do family?
It had to do with
what was
workforce. What is a family? Like, there was something about, I don't even want to quote it because I don't want to be wrong here, but it had to do with his positions on his website, very specifically about a family, like, yeah, I think it had to do something with family. I don't even remember. We've had so many questions.
Well, because it was so lengthy. If you've looked at his website, it's so lengthy. There's so much information, and it's hard to really follow what that does in a municipal situation.
Right.
And that's really what we wanted to get down.
Yeah.
But he seemed to understand it and be able to bridge the gap there.
Yeah, he did.
And bring it in how that could work together.
And then at the end, he was just Mr. Unifier. And
he was. That was it.
So
but that was kind of fun.
That must be a personality thing, because I was thinking about this. I said, there's always that one person who wants to make sure everybody's happy.
Yes.
And I just thought, I don't know about this one in this type of situation. Like, on an everyday, sure, let's make everybody get along. And honestly, politics could use some of that.
It could. And he did come out against the airport. He did say, hey, I am against the airport. This is not something we need. And let's move on from there.
From the names we have so far that we talked about so far, all of them were a no for the airport, but we didn't have one other candidate, and that was Bill Cox.
That's Bill. Okay.
So what's the deal? Why didn't we have Bill? And what do we know of what were the other candidates saying? And what do you remember of that?
So with Bill, he just felt like this wasn't a good place for him to be at that time. And one of the questions we would have liked to have known, where does we would have liked to have had him come out and talk about the airport, because people brought up, and you've seen it on social media, that his name is on the endorsement page for the PAC, and that he also gave money to the PAC that supported the airport. And that was something that we brought up.
What did Rustami say about that?
Rustami was surprised. He's like, really? He said he did. He supported this. And so, I mean, I can't speak for him.
Right.
Yeah, we can't speak for him. Right. But, these are things that are being brought up. People wanted to know. We also would have wanted to know about the apartments, in his position as a P&Z chairman. Does he, why does he support all these? And, what is it? And, was it a zoning change? Was it, hey, these were already approved? And you want to know what those answers are specifically.
Absolutely. This is definitely a season we're going to remember, Chuck. There are a lot of people who are upset and just up in arms, really, about the airport, about the apartments, about the traffic here in McKinney.
Yes. Infrastructure is a big deal for people. You've got, we got roadways, and to your point, the traffic. Well, the traffic, you got to have the roadways, you got to have the expansions. Now there's going to be more traffic because we didn't take care of some of these things, and we're spending money on these projects instead of putting it towards roadways or sewer water, things like that. That really, and going out into the ETJ, could you take some infrastructure out there, because you do have some like Painted Tree and some of the other big developments that are going out there where there does need to be some infrastructure.
Yeah.
And can we pay for those
Yeah.
without going up on taxes?
Sure.
Because that's a big deal, is taxes.
Yeah,
It's
it
going to be
is.
another
It
issue.
is. As a McKinney resident, what is on top of your concern, like list that? What do you care most about?
What do I care
one
most
thing?
about?
What
Bringing
one thing?
businesses in here.
Businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking at, again, it's the sales tax revenue, bringing in enough for restaurants or retail. We have so many opportunities. You look at the stadium, you don't have any restaurants or retails. A lot of people are going to Allen, they're going to Frisco, they're going down to Legacy West also to eat. Whenever you have the football championship there at the stadium, nice stadium, they're going down to Legacy West to do their eating in the restaurants and so on. We just don't have enough of that here. And you can see it where there's a gap in there. There's a gap study that's done by the retail store. They're a large organization. They do these gap studies that talk about potential for revenue versus what the city's actually bringing in. And they've found that there's a lot of leakage here in McKinney. And I'd like to see a lot of that, because you can pick that up. The other thing I'm concerned about is money that's going to unproven concepts. And are we really, are we spending money in areas, and it seems like we're just giving money out.
Such as the surf park or what?
Yeah, the venue, it just opened. If you look at that one, they opened their first one in August, and it was already approved prior to that. And then you have the surf park. It's opening across the street from another organization that has a successful track record, one over in Rockwell, one of the largest water parks out there. And really, it's not just those. We really need some items that are going to be affordable for families. With the economy, with the inflation, everything's gone up. We've really got to focus on things that are really affordable. It's just become such a huge challenge for people. And, when you put those in there, who's really going to be able to do that here in the city?
I just hope that we can get back to a place where McKinney residents are actually heard. I realize that there's a division in whose voice is going to be heard the loudest, right? Because there's people who are for and against anything. But I think that we haven't been listened to very well, right? And it became very focused on a certain group of people, et cetera. So I think it's a good time to reverse some things, and let's see what happens. So I just want to wish all our candidates good luck and God bless on everything that you're doing. Good luck on the hard work. Listen, we understand that even though maybe you may be really sharp on the issues, or maybe you're lacking some info, we know this. We know that you've worked hard.
Yes.
We know how hard this is. We know how hard it is on your families. You can attest to that. I mean, this is hard. And so good luck with that. God bless you. And Chuck, thank you so much. This was fun.
Yeah, no, it was good. I'm looking forward to doing another one. And maybe if there's a runoff, we'll get a second chance at this, right?
We'll have to see for sure. Okay. All right, my friends. Well, God bless you, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.